What's up, everyone? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and here it is, my top 10, the best of my year-end list. Again, as I've been saying at the beginning of all of these videos, this year has been absolutely awesome with just killer metal releases across the board. And these were my 10 favorites of the year, the ones that I just couldn't stop listening to. Probably going to be some familiar ones on here. There's definitely some ones that have popped up on a lot of year-end lists with pretty good reason, but there also might be some surprises. So yeah, let's just get this one started off with my number 10, and that would be Better Lovers, Highly Irresponsible. Now, yeah, you just saw this in the collection update not too long ago if you watched that collection update, but I did that collection update quite some time ago. We just didn't have time to really put it up because we were still doing reviews. And man, I really wish we reviewed this album. When Every Time I Die pretty much nuked itself from within, I was pretty bummed. I've been a long-time fan of that band. I love spazzy, just mean-spirited, sarcastic, cynical, metallic hardcore, and Every Time I Die were one of my favorite bands doing it. You know, that, of course, Botch and Converge and even Norma Jean. I love those, like, squawky alarm clock riffs and stuttered breakdowns and just maniacal shouting, and lo and behold, this band surfaced with members of Every Time I Die, Fit for an Autopsy, and Dillinger Escape Plan, and holy shit, this album is awesome. This album is steeped in anger and just contempt for, I don't know, literally everything they talk about. There's like a snide, very cynical delivery to everything, but musically this just captures that essence of just frantic, off-the-wall, enraged hardcore where everyone sounds like they're exhausted by the end of the song. But much like a lot of those bands that I'm comparing this to, namely Every Time I Die for some pretty obvious reasons, they find a way to squeeze in these just killer, flat-out riffy hooks and catchy choruses. Future Myopia, that chorus has lived rent-free in my head since the first time I heard it. But also songs like Everything Was Put Here For Me, which seems like it is about the greediness and entitlement of humanity. Lie Between the Lines, which is just a vicious, chuggy, groovy opening track on here. Superman Died Paralyzed has like just these vicious hardcore hooks and a flat out just metal chugathon in the middle of the song. This album is just vicious as hell and pretty much just stands on the throat of humanity as a whole, and I don't know, kind of just laughs but is also just really disappointed in it. I don't know, I needed something to kind of just channel my rage of just people being absolute fucking bags of suck, and yeah, believe me, the holidays kind of brings that out, and a lot of people, I think, holiday shopping will definitely bring that out. But yeah, this album is fantastic, start to finish. Even the softer songs on here that I initially wasn't as big of a fan of have actually really grown on me too. If you have not checked this out and you're kind of longing for that space that Every Time I Die occupied at one point, check this out. This is absolutely killer. At number 9, we have High on Fire, Cometh the Storm. Man, this might be one of the best High on Fire albums in years, and that is not to say this band has put out clunkers. In fact, I like every High on Fire album. I'm a diehard fan of this band. Matt Pike just drips riffy excellence on every single album, but there's something about this one where it is a little bit more slow and brooding and groovy. It doesn't necessarily go to the D beat well as much, that I just like. These songs smolder a little bit more than just kind of rage and blaze out of control. And man, the production, everything on here. This was their first album with new drummer Cody Willis, who does a great job in terms of driving these songs with these heavy, lumbering rhythms, lots of tribal play too. The warlike tribal drums that drive the title track, I absolutely love. It's like hearing an army just off in the distance about to just raid the living shit out of your village. And that kind of works because there's this like kind of like Conan-ish vibe to this entire album when it comes down to it's just big, heavy, menacing riffs and, you know, Matt Pike's gravelly vocals. Darker Fleece, the closing song in here, has just one of the most gnarly breakdowns I think I've heard this year. Matt Pike just knows how to do stoner metal in his own way. He puts his own touch in it. He gives it, you know, hints of death metal and like a little bit of thrash and kind of just makes that style come alive. And honestly, I think maybe the big thing in here was kind of like slowing down these songs and kind of just letting the more stoner metal groove kind of hit. I don't know, it just made these songs hit even harder. Like honestly, they haven't hit this way since like Oh man, Death is This Communion. Anyway, I gushed about this one plenty in the review. I fucking love High on Fire, and this, I don't know, it could be a new favorite here. I guess we'll figure that out whenever we decide to rank High on Fire, which, believe me, I really want to do. But yeah, if you have not checked out this album for whatever reason, just fucking do it. It's awesome. That's pretty much all I got to say there. Number 8, and this was one that kind of came out of nowhere, and we just kind of reviewed it on a whim. We really didn't know very much about the band at all, and it became one of our mutual favorites. Like, spoiler alert, I know this album is going to pop up on John's list too. And that album is Suffer, Grand Canvas of the Aesthete. This album is absolutely just quality death metal, and I feel like it takes a lot of influences from some of my favorite bands. This is like a combination of Morbid Angel, Carcass, and Suffocation, and like the best parts of them. You have the vocal flips that you expect from Carcass, with a vocal style that is definitely more along the lines of Jeff Walker, with its very raspy, snarly, kind of higher end screams, and then much lower vocals that you could definitely say are close to Bill Steer, but they're also kind of close to Frank Mullen too. Frequently shifting awesome riff patterns, blast beat patterns. It has that technical punch that you expect from Suffocation, but also that just dreary, menacing atmosphere that Morbid Angel conjures up on, well, virtually every album. This album has very rich production. The drums sound great. The riff work on here, every song on here has incredible catchy riffs, really nasty syncopated breakdowns. This definitely kind of walks a line between like more modern death metal and just old school death metal greatness. There wasn't a song on here that I didn't like, and yeah, I'm just a sucker for riffs, and God, this album definitely has it. And it's definitely more than just like, you know, meat and potatoes death metal. There's a lot of cool technical play on here. So yeah, baseline again, going back to what I said at the beginning, this is like a hybrid of Suffocation, Morbid Angel, and Carcass. If you love all three of those bands and you really wanted to hear them combined into one band, well, then it's right here. It is this album. Check it out. I absolutely love this one, and looking forward to hearing more from these guys in the future for damn sure. At number 7, we have Huntsmen, The Dry Land. I have been a big fan of this band since their debut album. Their mix of like, I don't know, like Americana folk music, like US folk music, and then stoner doom and almost post-metal, all kind of weaving it together. There was just something about that I really dug, especially when it came down to like vocal harmonies. Yes, this band definitely has a lot of harsh vocals, but there's also a lot of just amazing vocal lines between, I believe, at least 3 or 4 vocalists on here. Once again, this band just does something that I think is kind of uniquely theirs. Like, you have these soft moments of just, again, kind of like Rust Belt aesthetic, because this band's from Chicago, and believe me, if you go pretty much Chicago all the way out to my area, you're going to come across a lot of Rust Belt towns. And there's definitely an aesthetic to that I think this band captures, and I think they capture it well on all their albums. But here, it feels a little bit darker and more harrowing. You have like these big atmospheric sections and swells of like dissonant tremolos, and then lumbering slow stoner metal riffs. And then on top of that, these really amazing vocal harmonies, especially the female vocals on here. There's lots of passages of just haunting female vocals. I believe it is the song Rain on here, where she is just belting out these lyrics with like the passion and fury of like Ann Wilson, and that combined with like these like, you know, cleaner passages of like what sound like very dirty old acoustic guitars, it just comes together so damn well on here. I especially love the brilliant closer, the Herb Site, which honestly is just like one long droning stoner doom sort of jam, like very Monolord-ish. This album packs a lot of cool ideas and blends them together really well. And this album is just like a very cool, like kind of dark, introspective listen with just great hooks. If you've slept on this band for whatever reason, I strongly recommend this one. And much like a lot of these, I recommend their other stuff as well. But yeah, definitely check this out if you're a fan of like Mastodon, Baroness, Monolord. I would even say like a little bit of like, you know, ISIS in there too, in terms of some of the more post-metal sections. Just check out the band. They're amazing. At number 6, we have Ripped to Shreds with Sanshi. When Jubian came out, and I reviewed it and was completely blown away, and that one made my year-end list as well, I was like, man, I don't know how the hell they're going to top this. Well, I was fucking wrong. This album kind of blows that one away. This is just straight up like thrashy, vicious, almost kind of grindy at times HM2 death metal. And honestly, it's like my favorite HM2 death metal released this year. This album snarls with just absolutely savage riffs and, of course, that crispy, gnarly tone, but bringing in elements of thrash metal, grindcore, death grind, and even a touch of heavy metal every now and then. It keeps these songs fresh. This doesn't sound like rehash of, Dismember and Entombed, which I love and I'm generally always down for, but this just kind of has more to it, and these songs are really well written. Every one of these songs has amazing leads on it, frantic galloping drums. The drum performance in here is just awesome. Like, this dude is flying throughout this entire album, but he's got like a lot of cool, clever fills, good cymbal work, but man, it's the riff work on here. The riff work is amazing. Like, this just sounds like so many different killer bands combined. And again, this is just like one of those albums that attacked my personal algorithm for what I love in death metal, and then just seasoned it with a fucking HM2 pedal just to make sure they got me. Yeah, this is amazing. Start to finish, every single track on here absolutely rips. Visions of Sin, Mirror of Darkness, oh god, Living in Effigy, Force Fed. It doesn't matter which track I say, they're all awesome on here. And I'll also even say that this is their best album so far, which, shit, I think like every time they've put out an album since we've started doing this channel, I've probably had them on my year-end list. And this, I don't know if this is the highest mark it's had. I know there's a lot of competition this year, but I will say that this is better than Jubian, and Jubian I absolutely gushed over. So yeah, this is their best album so far in my opinion. If you have not checked out this album and you love HM2 death metal, you have made a grave mistake. You need to listen to this. It is absolutely awesome. Check out Rip to Shreds. They fucking roll. All right, now we're inside of the top 5, and this next one has been popping up in a lot of lists with good fucking reason. That is Crypt Sermon, the Stygian Rose. I've been a big fan of everything this band has released, and honestly, I might say that this is their best one yet. Well, this band, I would definitely say, worships at the awesome altar of epic doom bands like Candlemass and Solitude Aeturnus. There's definitely more to their sound, and especially more to their sound now on this album. There's a lot more intricacy to the riffs, a lot more classic heavy metal influence, lots of galloped rhythms, and I love the fact that the vocals have gotten a little bit more gruff and kind of more sinister sounding overall. Every song on here is awesome. They're drawn out with lots of cool movements. The choruses hit, but again, they have that doom quality where they're not always soaring. They draw you back down to the depths of darkness where good doom metal lives. While I love pretty much every song in here, Scrying Orb might still be my favorite. There's something about that chorus that is just particularly haunting and catchy, but every song on here is just absolutely chock full of just great guitar work. And this is also the first one where they have a full-time synth player, which the synths on here add this moody, dark, sinister texture to everything on here, as if it really needed that much more. But honestly, when you compare it to their older albums, maybe it did. This album just hits hard on everything that I love about classic heavy metal and doom metal. The songs are so well constructed. I think this is probably some of the best songwriting to date for this band. Granted, this is only their third album, but man, they're hitting their stride right now, I would say, with this one, and it is just fantastic from start to finish. If you're a longtime Candlemass and Solitude Aeturnus fan, then I would say you absolutely need to check out this band. But also, if you like just good classic heavy metal that's a little bit more tinged to the darkness, like, Satan and stuff like that, check out this album. I can definitely see why Decibel had this at number 1. Decibel's based out of Philly, and they're a Philly band. I don't know if that had much to do with it, maybe. But at one point, this was one that was contending for that top spot as well, and yeah, it landed inside the top 5. So obviously it didn't slip that far, but yeah, check this album out. Absolutely amazing work. Probably the best thing they've put out so far. At number 4, bit of a redemption arc, maybe, arguably. I don't know. This band's recent output has been kind of divisive with some. And admittedly, it took me a while to kind of get used to their newer era, I guess you could say. Because my fandom was definitely attached to what is definitely regarded as their best years, I would say. And that would be Opeth with The Last Will and Testament. I was not expecting to actually have this on my list. There was still part of me that thought, like, yeah, I'm going to get another cool prog rock, prog metal-ish album, which that era of the band, you know, right, I'm not the biggest fan of Heritage or Pale Communion, but I like Sorceress and Incantation. So I think they were on the right track in terms of that style, but then they kind of switched up things. And this goes beyond just the growls are back. But holy shit, the growls are back. And I know that seems like such a small thing, but those growls added a lot of weight to the music, and it made all their heavier parts sound even heavier. But outside of that, the more sinister, dark, foreboding sort of aura that this band creates came back as well, but it also combined elements of their prog era. This I wouldn't call like a full like return to like Blackwater Park or Deliverance or, you know, Ghost Reveries or anything like that. But I will say that if Opeth hadn't taken that hard right turn to like classic 70s prog with Heritage, this feels like it would have been what would have logically followed up Watershed. The songs are heavier, they're darker. Their first album with their new drummer, and their new drummer is absolutely awesome. And his drum style is very similar to Axelrod, so there's really not like a huge thing to get used to there. But this brought back a lot of things that I was missing about Opeth without making it sound like retread of their earlier material. Paragraph 5, which I didn't even know what the hell that symbol was until we reviewed it. Like, I'd legit never seen that before. But that song did something that I hadn't heard in a while in terms of like an Opeth song. A softer build into flat out heavier material with more like just sinister, chuggier riffs, and of course those growled vocals. But there's still like a lot of that prog era on here in terms of their frequently intricate kind of noodly riffs and Frederick's amazing lead play on here. Paragraph 4 features an amazing guest flute solo from Ian Anderson of Jethro Tull, which is probably the most Opeth move they could have fucking pulled there, was getting him on there. He also does a lot of these spoken word segments on here when it comes down to like the reading of the will, I guess you could say. The last track on here, the one with an actual title, A Story Never Told, honestly, I'm kind of with John with him saying it's one of the most beautiful songs they've written, and it legit is. But it's not like a proggy soft song. It's more along the lines of the stuff they were doing on Damnation. It still sounds dark and haunting and very melancholic, but man, like the melodies are so damn good. Yeah, this kind of surprised me as to how much I liked it. Like, I really wasn't sure, like, because the first single had the growls and then the second single didn't. And I was a little bit worried that they just kind of like let in with like maybe the one song with growls in it, and then the rest of it would sound a little bit more akin to like a maybe heavier, darker Aeturnum, which I really wouldn't have had a problem with, but I don't know if it'd be talking about this one in the top 10 or on my list. But this ended up being closer to the Opeth that I have been missing for years, and point blank, this is kind of the album that I think Opeth needed to make. They brought back elements that people missed, and they kept it still moving forward, which is trickier than hell. And they did it in Opeth fashion with big string sections and elaborate synths. Yeah, this album is amazing. Way to go, Opeth. I feel like you're kind of back, but you really never left. Yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit. But yeah, this has probably been my favorite Opeth listen since Watershed. And yeah, it's just good hearing them back to the old darkness again. So yeah, number 4 in here. Welcome back, Opeth. Kind of curious where you're going with the next one now already, but we probably have a lot of time before we get to that. Number 3. Did I mention goth rock really kind of took over metal in a way? Like it was just this fun underlying trend with a lot of bands. Well, one band that has been doing this for a while and then just out of nowhere wrote like one of the best goth rock albums I think I've ever heard was Tribulation. Subrosa and Aeturnum. I was not expecting this transition from their last album, which was a favorite of mine, where the gloom becomes sound. That album is one of my favorites by the band. I mean, I love Down Below too. I love their first album, The Horror, which is a flat out thrashy death metal album. But this band likes to change their sound and kind of keep you guessing. And while it was definitely alluded to that goth rock had become like a bigger influence, I didn't expect a full-on goth rock album with cleaner vocals, like lush baritone crooning on here, and cleaner guitars, and just stuff that reeks of Sisters of Mercy and The Cure and Bauhaus and just a ton of killer bands. And my God, the songwriting in here is infectious. Hungry Waters is another song that has lived rent-free in my head. In fact, if I say that song title too many times, I'm going to end up humming it in my head because the chorus is so damn catchy. Same thing with Saturn Coming Down, Murder in Red, those lush synths and electronic drums on that song in particular. It's just like seedy goth night club energy. I just love that dark kind of like almost Depeche Mode sort of swing to the rhythms. This album's just beautiful across the board. The Reaping Song is possibly one of my favorites on there too. I love that kind of like tribal fill drum pattern. It almost kind of sounds a bit like Murder by Death. A little dingy sounding, like it's being played in a old venue with like smoke hanging around so everyone can kind of just take in that wonderful secondhand smoke that we miss at venues. We don't really miss that. I'm a smoker and I honestly don't miss that. It's a little like Nick Cavey at times. This album is amazing, and I did not think it was going to like flat out beat the last one, especially with the growls kept to a minimum on here. And you know what, honestly, props to him for doing like some amazing clean vocals. Honestly, the clean vocals, kind of one of my favorite parts of this. Now, I believe this was like a tribute to like Italian horror and like, you know, Italian cinema in general, or at least that might have been like an underlying theme for this. So I don't know if this is going to be like the direction they head with the next album too. You know, whether or not this is like more conceptual, I'm not sure, but I know that this is one of my favorites by this band now. And that's really tough to say because honestly, I like all their albums and I like their very interesting evolution. And I'm really curious where they go from here because this is another stark change in their sound. Anyway, I've gushed about this long enough. This is an amazing listen. If you have not checked it out, I strongly recommend it. If you're a big goth rock fan and you want to hear some good metal licks thrown in there too, this right here is just absolutely amazing. Number 2, the silver medalist in this one. This was also one that was close to being my year ender. And honestly, a lot of these had points where they were like, I don't know, maybe you're my number 1. But anyway, this one dropped down to the not so drastic position of number 2 here. And that is Nile, The Underworld Awaits Us All. I was a big fan of Violent Erotic Rites, which was kind of the beginning of a whole new era with the band since Dallas left the band to go focus on Narcotic Wasteland. So Carl recruited some new faces and of course brought back some very important old faces, namely George Calais, because dude's like a drum god. And Violent Erotic Rites was awesome. I dug that album. But this album flat out blows it away, and honestly I will say this might be Nile's best album since Annihilation of the Wicked, which I mean, that could be my favorite. I don't know anymore. Nile is up there with one of my favorite death metal bands. I've been listening to them for years. And honestly, I can't think of an album by them that I flat out just don't like. And with bands like that, you kind of wonder when they're going to miss. And Violent Erotic Rites, I thought was awesome, but I was like, all right, well, let's see how much they cement this new lineup with, you know, another album. And oh my God, this is absolutely fantastic. The riff work is absolutely insane. Carl Sanders is a genius, and at his age, his dexterity is insane. But George Calais, once again, puts on a clinic. Like, I can't even fully explain what he's doing other than he's doing it really fast. And his penchant for extending fills and, you know, his breakdowns and such, and even the blast beat patterns, I just think is flat out crazy. But it's all about the songs in here, and these songs are biting, vicious, technical, riffy. This does a lot of what I think technical death metal should do. Explore riffs, try to find hooks, you know, and it's not always about just dazzling you with like a million notes in every second. Like, break it down a little bit, get into some grooves, open it up with some fucking cool atmosphere. Literally all the things that Nile has been doing for years. And at this phase in their career, they are doing it again, it's such a fucking high level. I would be hard pressed to pick a favorite on here. Like, I loved every track in here. True Gods of the Desert might be one of my favorite standouts just because it's like kind of the more slow building epic. It's a little bit less on the blasty side. That isn't to say George isn't just going ham on the drums, but I like that kind of like more brooding nature. But man, songs like Overlords of the Black Earth, Under the Curse of the One God, man, there's just so much awesome stuff going on in those songs, and they're so dramatic and over the top. The 3 vocalist dynamic on here, I think is awesome. They combine for like just really solid gang vocals. Carl's deep roars are just ferocious as hell. Yeah, everything about this album I think is amazing. This is Nile pretty much operating at optimal levels. Everything on this album moves really well, despite flying at like Mach 10 in your face with just about every track. But yeah, Nile just absolutely killed it. I wavered at a 5 on this one, and after even more listens, I'm at a 5. Like, this is a flat out 5 without a doubt. I mean, so are most of these, honestly. But yeah, if you have not checked this one out, you missed out on, I think, one of Nile's most fierce albums in years. So check it out. And finally, my number 1 album of 2024. I'm pretty sure a lot of people probably see this one coming. It's been on just about every year-end list out there for, well, metalheads for damn sure, and surprisingly, non-metal publications and such have started recognizing this band, which in turn should infuriate this band's detractors, which they definitely have plenty, but I don't care. And that album is Blood Incantation's Absolute Elsewhere. This album is monolithic, epic, and this small CD just does not do it justice. It's a good thing that I'm an obsessive fan and I went out and bought the special edition of this, because why not buy it again? Plus this also comes with Luminescent Bridge and a whole soundtrack to their making of process and a Blu-ray. But yeah, why not buy it again? For all the hype around this and all of the hype around this band, I feel like this is legit their best album. Who knew that Morbid Angel and Pink Floyd could go together so fucking well? The 2 massive tracks on here are their finest work to date. I love the blend of just old school death metal. It's technical, it's very proggy, but also these lush synth passages, which they actually got a member of Tangerine Dream to join them for, which if you're going to do like lush spacey synths and such, I feel like that's someone you'd probably want to get. This album is absolutely insane with its songwriting. The dynamics are amazing. I know this band seems to like get a lot of shit in terms of like, oh, they're hipsters or blah blah blah, but you really can't deny they're solid musicians at this point. Like, this is just really something else in terms of composition. And I'll even go as far as to say, like, if this wasn't Blood Incantation, like this was some other band up here, it'd be number 1 on my list. I think the music speaks for itself on here in terms of just really pushing the boundaries of what this band does. The mix on here I think is perfect. It's lush. It has a nice like analog crispness to it. It doesn't feel overproduced, and despite the fact that this is 2 tracks, both over 20 minutes, or at least both of them close to 20 minutes. One's 20 minutes, the other one's just shy of 20 minutes. I don't know. They're both long, but they don't feel like they're just cluttered with nonsense. Like, this doesn't come across as like a pretentious mess or anything like this. This sounds so well crafted and so well thought out that the only thing that I could say about it is like, holy shit, this is absolutely amazing. I feel like every bit of hype around this band, I think this is the payoff right here. Like, I enjoyed Luminescent Bridge. I thought it was solid. I liked Hidden History of the Human Race. That was a year-ender for me. Honestly, Starspawn is probably still the one that I would go to the most up until this one, but I feel like this is where all the hype really paid off. Like, they made an album that legit blew the doors off the scene, I would say, just in terms of like death metal. Hell, I think Time Magazine recognized this album. It was like their number 7 album of 2024. Not metal album. That's insane. Like, Time doesn't like metal. Time likes metal about as much as Rolling Stone, which I think their only metal mention in their best albums of the year was Kerry King. And that's fucking horseshit. Yeah, I love every second of this album. It's one that I listen to all the way through every time I listen to it, unless I'm in the car and it's not a long enough trip. But if it's a longer trip in the car, oh yeah, this one's going on. But yeah, my number 1 for 2024, this album is amazing and completely justified for being at the top of so many year-end lists, or at least getting high marks on year-end lists. It's worth every bit of the hype, and, well, at least to me, worth getting 2 different editions of it. And yeah, that will do it for 2024 in terms of like the year in review. I've toyed with the idea of doing like most disappointing / bad albums. I don't know, I might still do that because there's definitely some clunkers we've listened to throughout this year, but honestly, most of this year was just a lot of killer stuff, and there's a lot of stuff that I really wanted to include. Like, I could have done a top 50 easily. My initial list, I think, had about 65 releases that I was like, dude, these are all really good, and whittling down to 40, well, it sucked, just like it sucks every year. But yeah, I'm kind of toying with the idea of doing like disappointing / bad releases, because, I mean, you know, there's definitely some. I don't know. I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Either way, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We also have memberships. They're only 99 cents, and our main perk is doing members-only live streams where we're going to start trying to talk about like particular subject matter, just to kind of separate them from our usual streams where we just talk about whatever. We're not going to do one for December. We're going to do one for January, though, just because December's just too nuts to really organize something. We may do like, you know, just a regular stream sometime in December just for shits and giggles, or to alleviate holiday stress, because I know that's floating out there. We also have dumb emojis, which I don't know why I promote that, but that is definitely a thing we have. And yeah, this is the new way to support the channel. We also still have our store, thrallsmetal.com, with our t-shirts and hats. That is linked down below in the video description. And again, if you would like to become a member of this channel, there's a join button down below this video. And of course, thank you guys so much for literally everything. I know the thank you part of the video where I feel like I say a lot of the same things, but I mean all of this. This has been such an amazing run. We've been doing this for 6 years. We're almost at 20,000 subscribers, which I'm going to be putting out a, you know, giveaway for our 20K mark. I have some stuff I definitely wouldn't mind giving away. And again, it's like 20,000 more subscribers than I thought we'd ever get. And yeah, I can't help but to keep thanking you at the end of these videos, because it means the world to us. Our channel success is definitely predicated on, you know, you guys commenting, subscribing, doing all that. And we are eternally grateful. So one more big thank you, and we will catch you later.